The first bolt hit 6 inches from my face. I felt the heat before I heard the sound, a wall of scorched air that slammed into my visor and turned the world orange for half a second. I hit the deck on pure instinct, shoulder rolling behind a collapsed bulkhead, and the second bolt punched through the space where my head had been. Rock and molten metal rained down around me. Somewhere behind me, 2 soldiers from the Valaxi contingent were screaming, in a language I did not speak. That did not stop me from understanding exactly what they meant. Sorrow's Reach was supposed to be a clean operation. That is what the briefing had said. Sweep the perimeter, reinforce the relay station, extract within 4 hours. Nobody had mentioned that the Keth Collective had been stockpiling plasma artillery in the subsurface tunnels for 6 months. Nobody had mentioned that our intelligence was 8 weeks out of date. Nobody had mentioned that the moment the first volley hit, every joint compact commander on the field would lose their coordination grid and go dark simultaneously. I had been a combat engineer for 11 years by that point. My name is Owen Garrett, Sergeant, United Earth Marine Corps. I had served on 3 contested moons, 2 orbital platforms, and 1 very ugly situation on a gas giant mining rig that nobody in command ever officially acknowledged. I was not the smartest man in the Corps. I was not the fastest. What I was, and what 11 years had made me without my noticing, was a man who did not stop moving when things went wrong. I had learned, through repetition and survival, and a lot of dumb luck, that the worst thing you can do when the plan collapses is stand still and wait for someone to give you a new one. So I moved. I pulled my kit bag with me, kept low, and started working along the eastern wall of the relay station, where the debris was thickest. The Keth artillery had a cycle time, I had counted it twice already, roughly 9 seconds between volleys. 9 seconds is a long time if you know what to do with it. I used the first cycle to get to the next piece of cover. I used the second to drag Corporal Pete Hale behind a collapsed antenna tower after I found him crawling with a burned leg. I used the third to strip a Keth drone that had taken a lucky ricochet and stopped functioning, pulling its power cell loose and slipping it into my kit. That was when I saw her. She was crouched behind a shard of hull plating that had no business being called cover. It was angled wrong. The next volley that hit within 20 meters of her position would skip off the ground, catch the underside of that plating, and cook her alive. She was Vailhari. I could tell from the height, the angular armor, the faint bioluminescence that all Vailhari carry in their skin. Most of them glow a steady, confident gold or silver. She was flickering, dimming and brightening in short, uneven pulses that I would later learn meant one thing in Vailhari physiology. She was terrified and trying very hard not to be. I did not know she was royalty. She was wearing standard officer's armor, with no markings I recognized. She was alone, separated from her unit, and she was about to die behind a piece of metal that would not save her. I had 4 seconds left in the current cycle. I closed the distance at a run, threw myself over her, and hit the emergency kinetic barrier on my combat chassis. It was a human-built system, bulky, power-hungry, and widely mocked by every other species in the compact as an embarrassing crutch. The Vailhari used precision shielding. The Valaxi used reactive armor. Humans used a brute force bubble of kinetic dispersion energy that the Corps had been running since 2089 and had never once stopped running because it worked. The volley hit. The barrier took it. The feedback shook every tooth in my head and blew out the seal on my left arm plate. I felt the burn immediately, plasma finding the gap, cooking the skin beneath. I bit down and did not make a sound, mostly because I did not have time. I grabbed her arm, pulled her upright, and shoved a Keth drone pistol I had stripped earlier into her free hand. "Stay behind me," I said. "Stay low, and whatever you do, stop glowing so bright." She stared at me. Her eyes were pale amber, wide, and at that moment completely unreadable. I was already moving again. What followed was 2 hours that I have never fully explained to anyone, not because they were too terrible to describe, but because they were too strange. She steadied fast, faster than I expected. Once the initial shock burned off, she turned out to be an exceptional shot, calm, precise, almost methodical. We fell into a rhythm without discussing it. I found the paths. I built the cover. I broke us through 2 collapsed corridors using a det charge the size of my fist, and a power cell I had rewired into something that had no official name in any manual. She covered our movement every time we crossed open ground, and she never missed twice at the same target. We did not talk much. There was no time. At one point, when I was prying open a maintenance hatch with the wrong tool for the job, she looked at me and said, in accented but clear standard, "This is not in the doctrine for this scenario." "No," I agreed. "Then how do you know what to do?" I thought about it for half a second. "Because the doctrine isn't here, and we are." She was quiet after that. When extraction finally came, a security detail appeared around her so fast, and from so many directions, that it was clear they had been watching her position for some time, and had only now been able to reach her. She was pulled away before I could say anything beyond a nod. I went to the field medic with my burned arm. I was transferred off Sorrow's reach on the next available transport. Within a week, there were other things to worry about. Other deployments. Other broken situations to move through. I never got her name. 8 years passed. I left the Corps at 43, with a medical discharge, a settlement from the arm damage, and no strong opinion about what to do next. I ended up on a colonial settlement called Briar Station, out past the 3rd transit ring, not because it was beautiful, though parts of it were, but because it was quiet, and the maintenance contracts paid steadily, and nobody asked me what I had done before. I fixed water reclamation units and power coupling housings, and the kind of infrastructure problems that nobody noticed until they stopped working. It suited me. I was scraping corrosion off a reclamation pipe on a Tuesday morning, when the ship came in. It was Vale Hari. There is no mistaking that silhouette. Those long, spine-like dorsal fins that catch the light even in low orbit. It was not a trade vessel, or a diplomatic courier. It was a warship, and it set down in the civic square of Briar Station like it had every right to the stone. My neighbor Claudia came out of her doorway with her mouth open. The family next door pressed their faces to the window. I looked at the ship for a moment, decided it was not my problem, and went back to the pipe. Then the honor guard came for me specifically. 4 of them, in silver armor, moving with the kind of deliberate precision that meant they had a name, and they were certain of it. They stopped 2 meters away, and the one in front looked at me and said in compact standard, "Sergeant Owen Garrett, formerly of the United Earth Marine Corps. You are summoned to the presence of Her Luminance, Seralith Von Avara, first of her name, Queen of the Vale Hari Compact Throne, who has traveled 17 light years to stand before you." I set down my scraper. "Give me 5 minutes," I said. "I need to wash my hands." Claudia, behind me, made a sound I had never heard a human being make before. The inside of the ship was extraordinary, in the way that things built by a civilization 4,000 years older than yours tend to be. Not flashy. Just deeply, quietly correct. The kind of engineering where everything is exactly where it needs to be, and nothing is anywhere it does not. I noticed the load distribution in the corridor arches, the efficiency of the ambient lighting, the way the ventilation moved without sound. I could not help it. 11 years of engineering does not turn off. They brought me to a chamber that was clearly not the throne room. It was smaller, deliberate. A room chosen for the meeting, rather than for display. She was waiting. She looked different, of course. 8 years will do that, and she had spent those 8 years becoming the head of state of one of the most powerful civilizations in the Compact. She was composed in a way that I suspected had taken tremendous effort to build, and more effort to maintain. The bioluminescence was steady now, a calm, even silver gold, but when she looked at me, something behind it shifted. Not much, not dramatically, but enough. She dismissed the court with a gesture. A few officials stayed, because protocol apparently demanded witnesses. Everyone else left. "You don't remember my face clearly," she said. "I remember the situation," I said. "I remember you were a good shot once you stopped shaking." Something moved in her expression. I think it was the first real smile she had shown in a formal setting, in longer than either of us could measure. She explained the debt. In Vale Hari culture, the saving of a member of the royal bloodline creates something called Vayan Sorath, a life debt that is not symbolic or sentimental, but legally binding, constitutionally encoded, as real and enforceable as a treaty. She had ascended to the throne 3 years ago when her mother died without warning. She had carried this unresolved debt into her reign, and under Vale Hari law, It cast a shadow on the legitimacy of her rule until it was formally settled before a witness court. She had spent 4 years before that finding me. "You moved 3 times," she said, without accusation. "Quiet places are easier to find when you keep moving," I said. She accepted that. Then she asked me what I wanted, not what I needed, not what would be appropriate. What I wanted, in exchange for her life, from a queen who could offer nearly anything within the reach of her civilization. I took a long time with the question, long enough that one of the witnesses shifted uncomfortably. She waited without any sign of impatience. I thought about what I had seen in 11 years of service, the way other compact species looked at human soldiers, the careful condescension in diplomatic meetings, the way our technology was called redundant, and our methods were called blunt, and our instincts were called lucky rather than skilled. I thought about what it had cost us to earn a seat at that table at all, and how little the seat still meant. Then I thought about a piece of hull plating angled the wrong way, and a drone pistol, and 9 seconds between volleys. "I want humans to teach a course at the Compact Military Academy," I said. "Combat engineering and adaptive tactics. Not as a subject that other species can elect to study. A mandatory course. Every officer candidate, every species, before they can commission, taught by human instructors with full academic authority." The silence that followed was different from the silences before it. "You understand what you are asking," she said. "I do. It means every species in the compact sends their future officers to sit in a room and learn from us. Not as a courtesy, as a requirement. It means the Academy recognizes human knowledge as worth having before your commission, not just worth tolerating after." "It has never been done," she said. "I know." She looked at me for a long moment. "It would be resisted." "Probably. You're the queen." Another silence. Then she said, "Yes." Just that. No conditions attached. No timeline offered for negotiation. No committee to be formed. "Yes." I nodded. I did not thank her. It felt wrong to thank someone for agreeing that your people deserved respect. I turned to leave. I had reached the door when she spoke again, quietly, in a register that was not for the witnesses. "You told me to stop glowing so bright," she said. "I have thought about that many times." I paused. "I did not mean it as an insult," I said. "I know. I thought about it because I understood, eventually, what you actually meant. In our culture, dimming your light means weakness. Showing fear means you are unfit." She paused. "You were telling me to stay alive. The light was making us a target." "Yes," I said. "I have governed," she said, choosing her words very carefully, "by trying to hold my light steady, to never let it flicker where anyone could see. It is exhausting in a way I cannot describe to my court." Another pause. "I do not know why I am telling you this." I thought about it honestly. "Because I was there when it flickered," I said, "and you're still here." She did not respond, but her light, for just a moment, did something I had not seen it do in the entire meeting. It shifted, briefly, to a warmer color. Not gold, something closer to amber. I left the ship. Claudia was still in the square, her cold tea forgotten in her hands, her expression suggesting she was reconsidering everything she thought she knew about her neighbor. "What did she want?" she asked. "To clear a debt," I said. "And?" "It's clear." I went back to the pipe. The corrosion was still there, patient and indifferent, and it was not going to remove itself. 6 months later, an appointment came through on my compact registry. Senior Instructor, Combat Engineering and Adaptive Tactics, Compact Military Academy, Valhari Prime. Joint appointment, signed by the Royal Seal. The message below it listed 16 other names. Former human military engineers, pulled from stations and settlements across the compact. The first-class roster that accompanied the appointment listed officer candidates from 9 different species. 3 of the names on the list were Valhari nobles. I read it twice. I sat with it for a while. Then I accepted and sent one message to the Academy coordinator. "Tell them to bring something to write with. We have a lot of ground to cover." People have asked me since then what it felt like, that moment in the Academy when the first class sat down and looked at a human instructor and had to actually listen. I was not there for that first day. I arrived the second week, because my transport had a coupling failure that I spent most of the first leg repairing myself. But I heard about it from the instructor who was there, a woman named Gloria Trent, former Corps engineer, who had walked into that room with a busted projector, borrowed a whiteboard from the maintenance closet, and started the lesson without apologizing for any of it. She told me the room was skeptical, in the particular way that rooms full of people who think they are better than you tend to be skeptical. She told me she had spent the first 40 minutes on basic adaptive failure response, what you do when your primary system goes down and your backup goes with it, and you have 9 seconds and whatever is in your kit. She told me that by the end of that 40 minutes, the room was quiet in a different way. Not agreement, not admiration, just the specific quiet of people encountering something that is working and not having a ready objection to it. That is enough. That has always been enough. We did not get to the stars because we were the strongest species to reach them, or the most advanced, or the most elegant. We got there the same way we got through every catastrophe in our long, ungraceful history, by refusing to stop, by using what we had, by finding the path through a situation that had no path through it, and by deciding, without discussion or doctrine or anyone telling us it was possible, that we were going to be there on the other side. They called our systems clumsy. They called our methods blunt. They said we were lucky. I scraped corrosion off a water pipe the same morning a queen traveled 17 light years to find me, and I am here to tell you that luck had nothing to do with either thing. We show up, we move forward, we do the work. We always have.